made a fantastic video about Obamazoids movie. Now, it's one of those things I can't stop thinking about, which is odd to me because it's usually good movies that I can't stop thinking about and I rerun in my head. But this is a terrible movie, and I can't stop thinking about it. Now, some of you guys heard our discussion with Nigel the other day, and he had some very interesting thoughts. So I'm going to share my own thoughts on the movie a little bit, and I guess I should say it's a spoiler, but I'm pretty confident most of you have seen it by now. And first of all, I just wanted to say that it has like a 35% rating, which is good. I'm actually glad that the rating is so low because it deserves even lower than that, to be honest with you. Um, Again, I like made a comparison. Like, I know Justin Trudeau is a silly and stupid comparison to make. But what if he made a movie about the destruction of Canada? Even though he already is destroying Canada, but what if he made a movie about it? Like, how would Canadians feel? You know, it's strange. So, Theology Ed, his channel, he made a fantastic video. I put it in the community post. You guys got to see it. You guys got to see that video. He makes some really good points. One thing we do know is that there's a bunch of 666s in the movie. And I actually didn't find this out until after watching it because they're cleverly hidden. And it's one of those things where you really got to pay a lot of attention to detail because you'll miss so many things. I'll get into other examples. I haven't watched the movie and I won't watch it because I don't want to give them power to any negative things inserted into it. Yeah, I think you make a great point, actually. But it's too late for me. Well, let's just say I didn't give him my power anyway, though. I was just an observer, right? I definitely did not give him my damn power. But first things first. One thing we got to look at is the character Rose. So this is the little girl in the White family, and before I go on, there's a lot of racial tension in the movie, and there's references to slavery and things of that nature. So, in summary, basically, this white family, they go to a retreat on Long Island, and it's this big, beautiful house on the beach, and it's a white house. A White House. They go there and they start noticing problems with the internet and things like that. And at some point in the middle of the night, this African American gentleman with his daughter just show up and they say, "This is our house and we're renting it out to you. And sorry, but we have to stay here because there's chaos in the city. There was a cyber attack that took down communications." Okay. And I am getting a little bit ahead of myself. So there's a really important scene before that where the girl Rose, which, by the way, Rose, if there is a Pedgo 2 connection to this, and I think there is, because of the deer and all that stuff, and the eclipse, there was a Ring of Fire eclipse in the movie, by the way. Rose, remember, Lily in Pedgo 2, she's wearing the rose on her right ear. And Rose is aware of everything. She's the little girl, but everyone else is a brain dead moron compared to her and in denial. And it's kind of similar, I guess, with Lily, right? Because when she's holding the apple and she's disappointed when she drops the apple, she intuitively knows there's something not right, and it's kind of similar with this character. I have the ability to set things in motion by viewing them. So I've been lately being careful about not just this move. Oh, okay, no, that's good. No, I noticed that manifesting things is easier or has gotten easier, for sure. Absolutely. I see it all the time. Things I talked about it before, think about, and they just appear before me and all sorts of stuff. Right. So, hey, Will, what's happening? So I'm talking about the scene right now where the ship has lost its navigating abilities and it's now about to crash into the beach. So the Rose character, she sees the ship a mile away and she keeps saying, "Hey, it's getting closer." And Ethan Hawke and Julia Roberts and the others are just like, whatever, whatever. They're like, they'll be fine. Everything will be fine. And Theology Ed makes a great point about this. He says that uh, they knew something was wrong, but they didn't care enough to do anything about it, essentially. But Rose saw the ship about to crash, slam into the beach. She saw the ship a mile away, and she knew what was going to happen. And then, of course, they escape at the last minute. Um, and, it was almost too late by that point. um, and basically, that's when, the black family comes and insists to live in their own house, which they do. And we see kind of a deterioration of the communication systems, and things getting progressively more difficult over time, because no one knows what's going on, right? And so there's an interesting scene where Ethan Hawke is driving on a country road, and there's a bunch of flyers that fly out of the sky, and he's scared of this for some reason. I don't know what was so scary about that. It was stupid. But he takes back one of these flyers, and it's written in Arabic, saying "Death to America," right? Okay, so here we have the terrorists. We have the terrorists, right? So, long story short, uh, their son, Ethan Hawke's son, he starts getting really sick and pulling out his teeth. He has some kind of sickness. And in between all this stuff that's happening, you have strange things going on. You have like high frequency noises. Like they would beam these high frequencies that would literally shatter windows and like cause like mental torture and stuff like that. And so this kid ends up pulling out his teeth. And I actually had a really vivid dream like that one time, pulling out my teeth too. And Dina's like, my wife's like, "Oh, that's just a common dream." I'm like, "I don't know. I've only had one such dream once throughout my life that I know of." So they go to see Kevin Bacon because the kid's sick and he's gonna die if they don't get help. So Kevin Bacon is like the prepper character, okay, and they convince him to help his son. And Kevin Bacon explains that, you know, we don't know who the enemy is because there was flyers that were dropped in the East Coast written in Arabic, but in the West Coast, the flyers were written in Chinese or Korean. So we don't know who's responsible for this. So that's a really interesting concept right there, disinformation and confusion, right? When I think about this movie, I'm trying to imagine, a real like grid down scenario. Like it was dramatized and made to look really stupid and in the movie, like their reactions to things. But the actual ideas kind of seem realistic. They actually went into a step by step plan um, as to. So I forgot to get into the elites. Like the black dude character, he's talking about these elites who meet every winter solstice, and he like manages money for clients and stuff. And so he said that one of his clients, which is like one of these elites, he got all of his money out and booked it and left town. And he told me about this plan of to destabilize communications. Step one is to make people not be able to communicate with each other, and step two, they literally talked about in the movie like radio weapons and sonic weapons and ELF weapons, like look out for Charlie. So they literally used those words and how they were being used on people just to create more chaos and confusion. And then you had the deer, which they didn't explain very well, but the animals like lost their migration patterns. So they subtly imply that it could be from those weapons or God knows a pole shift. I still didn't get it, but the deer and all the animals started acting really strange throughout the movie, right? And they kept showing this buck deer all the time, right? The buck in Petco 2, and the buck in Donnie Darko, and the buck in The Knowing. It's a buck, it's a buck, it's a buck. And guess what I find out today, guys? My friend Dan did some research, and he found out some really interesting information about some Mesoamerican cultures actually a buck deer symbolized in their culture the birth of a new sun. And I never heard of that before. I thought that was really interesting. And they show throughout this movie multiple eclipses, right? One is a really blatant one. I actually debated this with Dan. He said it's a shot from space, so maybe it's just the moon moving in front of the sun, right? And but then I'm like, no, because the way it's positioned, it creates this perfect ring of fire eclipse, perfect ring of fire. And it could be foreshadowing April 8th, 2024. Pulling my teeth out could be from mRNA. Oh, right. mRNA. Yep. Good point there. And how you doing, Steve? Thanks for joining. This is true because the geese in my area are flying in circles. No, it is true. Animals have been acting strange for a long time. They've been acting weird for years, right? And yeah, so, you know, in conclusion, they're in a situation now where they have no clear enemy, they're confused. And so the last thing that's implied in the movie is civil war or like, you know, interior conflict, and they show like what looks like a nuclear explosion in the middle of Manhattan and other explosions taking place. Um and you know what? Like I that makes sense to me actually. Like, well, if realistically, if that were to occur and you have hordes of hungry, angry people that have no way to communicate long distance, it makes sense to me that they would start an uprising, like, the French Revolution or whatever. In general, in countries throughout history, people that have been oppressed or hungry or things are destabilized. Like, look at Haiti right now, for example. The country of Haiti is in total anarchy. And, you have gangs ruling the country. You have people rioting on a daily basis there. and just a civil uprising essentially in total chaos. I found out you can own an octopus as a pet, like literally. That's a new one to me too. Wow, an octopus, huh? Yeah. So again, people keep finding more and more stuff. I haven't even gotten up to date or have been up to date yet as to what new things have been found regarding this movie, but there's odd things, like for example, there's paintings that change, there is colors that change. I remember one person actually pointed out how there's a lot of blue in the movie, a lot of blue color. And I don't know why I made this connection, but I remember the story about all the blue houses that weren't burned in Maui. So I'm like, is there a connection here? Because there was an association with the color blue and wealth in the movie too, right? Hey, DiCello piano, right? So what do we have going on? We have this guy talking about this cabal who booked it before the event. And that's another comparison. So you have the buck deer in Pedgo 2. You have Lily that has a rose, and the little girl, her name is Rose, and Lily knows what's going on in Pedgo 2. Rose knows what's actually going on. You have the buck. You actually have a references to rabbits in the movie as well. You have the elites leaving before the event. iPedgo 2 exit before the event. Uh, I mean, it's not just predictive programming. It's mocking the masses and just further telling, just like really in your face, just telling you, hey, that's it. It's right there. And everyone's going to watch this movie and no one's going to do anything about it. And they're going to implement the plan. Because who's going to do, like, they know nobody's going to do anything or go against it. Or, I mean, I don't know. Like, what? I don't know. It still bothers the hell out of me. Last I checked, you had to have a zoologist degree or license to have an exotic or wild animal. I thought you do. Pretty much thought you do in most places. I mean, if I were to have an exotic animal, I would pick a capybara. Those things are awesome. It's a giant rat, big brown giant rat. An octopus is literally more intelligent than a dolphin. It's like having a pet dolphin in your swimming pool. It's insane. Nice. Yeah, you know what? I don't know if this is true, but apparently Obama actually told the director of the movie that this is likely how things will unfold or something of that nature. Don't quote me on that. I don't know that for a fact. I heard that from somewhere. Um, and again, like, you just don't know if it's 10 days away or 10 years away, just like Pedgo 2, right? Came out in 2012, still not completed. I think this movie kind of runs on that idea, or it actually might trick people too. It might trick people into thinking, okay, well, predictive programming is usually big distances in time in between these things, right? And then people have that mindset, and then bam, like 10 days later, it's done. It's already happening. The cyber attack, this and that, this and that. I mean, it could, because from what I understand now, we actually have aircraft carriers right now planning to strike Yemen. And even though a lot of it's been empty talk over this long period of time, they threatened to sink our ships first, like very overtly threatened it. And so I see a scenario, a possibility of that happening, which will result in the global conflict, which will then result possibly later on, not necessarily right away, like massive cyber attacks, like an exact like type of scenario like in a movie, as a result of this global war. Okay, so that makes unfortunate sense to me. Um, there's something else I wanted to say. Yeah, I also heard that China apparently has a back door to all our critical infrastructure. So, in the event of a war, they could access everything we have here and do that cyber attack. So, and this information, by the way, came out right at the same time when the movie did. The movie came out, and then we found out that China can access anything, all of our critical infrastructure, all of our systems here, everything. They could access it all. Imagine having that kind of power. I mean, I'll tell you, in the event of a global conflict, that's exactly what they would do. That's the first thing that they would do. I mean, it just makes sense to me. I mean, an invasion is nonsensical. Um, Nuclear strikes are possible, but unlikely. Massive cyber attack, just like the movie, very likely. Just some food for thought. Again, I'm just. The movie bothered me a lot. Not only that, but it sucked. It was cringy. There was a lot of weird sexual tension in the movie that like just felt just very cringy and weird. There was a lot of. It just sucked. Man, it sucked. Okay. That's all I wanted to say.